Hey, we should be live. Microphone looks good. Window capture's up and running. Okay, so we're back, and we are working on the Grim Captain. And as I've said 8 other times already, if you don't know, we are invoking Rule 0, which is if your playgroup allows it, it's fine, because we are building around the Grim Captain, even though he is not technically legal as a commander. Legendary artifacts that are not modal double face cards with legendary creatures. This is a transforming double face card, which there is a difference. You cannot just cast the Grim Captain as himself. You have to play the throne and then go through the effort to flip him over. Cannot actually be commanders. So, I know, Throne of the Grim Captain is not technically legal as a commander, but if your playgroup allows it, they like the weird and the wacky things, like, building around uncommanders, or like ones that have the acorn symbol or were from before Unfinity, um, or around like the weird promo cards or something that aren't tournament legal, you know, like the My Little Pony set or Grimlock from the Hasbro Con thing, or just putting the holiday cards in their deck for certain things, and your playgroup allows stuff like that, or they just don't care enough to say, no, you can't play the Throne of the Grim Captain, that'd be too weird. And it's just fine and dandy. So, we finished on Phyrexia All Will Be One last time, so that brings us to Planar Chaos. That is a human rebel assassin. Probably not. Yeah, we do not have a ton of room in our deck for creatures that aren't one of the 4 creature types, because we need to make sure we have critical mass on those. So unless it mills us a ton repeatedly, I probably don't want a creature that's not one of the 4 creature types. Do we actually want Damnation? We already have Toxic Deluge, Oblivion Stone. Um, I'm inclined to say no, but maybe. Maybe we have room for one more Wrath, so. Planar Chaos. Nation. You, black, black. Sorcery. We can consider it at least. Dash Hopes, Deadly Grub, Dune Rider Outlaw. I forgot he was a rebel, in addition to his other types. No. Enslave, no. Extirpate, don't think so. Imp's Mischief. Always playable in Commander. I don't normally run this card. I don't. Unlike some of the other Commander staples, I don't disagree with people that run this one just arbitrarily in their deck. There's tons of targeted removal going around, and being able to change, not only to change the target away from your thing to somebody else's, but sometimes to just make somebody kill the thing you really desperately need off the table that's messing with you, instead of the thing that's messing with them. You know, like, if there's an enchantment that's holding you off from attacking a player, but it's not really bothering the player that's casting the enchantment destruction spell, being able to change it to that enchantment is super helpful. But I never wind up feeling like I have room for it, is the issue, and it's usually not that big a deal to me to have it. It's kind of like when I put in things like Withering Boon, where it's like sometimes you really do need to be able to interact with the spell on the stack, as opposed to the permanent that it becomes. So, this is another one of those where it's a black card that can interact with a spell on the stack. So it gives you a pseudo, like a very limited options counter spell, but in your mono black deck, and it's guaranteed to counter the things it's actually targeting. So, unlike, say, Dash Hopes above, where the opponent can just pay the 5 life and resolve their spell normally. So, I can understand why people put a higher priority on getting an Imp's Mischief into their base black decks, especially if they have no blue. It's also like the mentality where I sometimes run Lapse of Certainty in my white decks, because sometimes you just need to buy yourself that extra turn of that spell not resolving. That was going to ruin all your cool things, so I absolutely get behind Imp's Mischief. It just never feels like a card that I want to run. And I don't think that's changing, since the Grim Captain already has Hexproof naturally. I don't need to divert targeted spells away from him. So. And most people don't run spells that exile graveyards. They run, like, a permanent with an activated ability or a triggered ability that will exile graveyards, more likely, so it's not like we can protect ourselves from graveyard hate with it. That's true, Miri is a vampire. She's one of my favorite vampires, like, just story-wise. Yeah, I used to read the Magic stories a lot. Like, I still read the one, like, the articles on Wizards, but I used to buy the books and read them. And in the Tempest Block book, which was like a collection of short stories instead of like a full, it was more like how Wizards does its stories now, where it's just like, and here's this part, and here's this part, and we can like change perspective characters and throw in little side stories about what's going on while all of this is happening and all of that, um, as opposed to just one cohesive narrative. But in the Tempest block, when Miri and Krovax fight, um, the story implies that she would have become a vampire if Krovax had not like finished her off at the end of their fight. So I was always like kind of disappointed in that, because um, my two favorite archetypes in fiction are the fallen heroes and the villain seeking redemption. So Miri as an evil villain when she was best friends with the main hero would have been a thing I would have wanted to see back then. So when Planar Chaos came out and we got Vampire Miri, I thought that was super cool. So that's why she's one of my favorite cards. That being said, I don't know that she's actually good enough. 4 mana, 3/2, flying first strike, haste. Yeah, she's not like, when she was printed, she had very good stats. Like a 4 mana, 3 power flying haste creature was already pretty good. Add in first strike and the fact that things getting into combat with her screw up combat math. Really sells her as a credible threat back then. Like, creatures were just starting to get better a little before this. So, like, creatures for the longest time in Magic, like, Visions was the first time where we got creatures with actual comes into play abilities, and creatures were just slowly getting better and better over the years, and now we get like a 2 mana 3/2 trampler, and it's just like, that seems awfully high, or a 3 mana 3/4 vigilance with card advantage engine attached to it. Like, remember when a 3 mana 3/3 with no abilities was like almost rare worthy and like pack one pick oneable in draft? Yeah, I remember that. Now it's got first strike and like 3 different abilities on it or something. What is Breaches? Breaches has first strike, right? He's like a 3/3 first strike, and pirates attacking, you get to choose one of his 3 modes for each pirate. One's like one mode each per turn. One of each mode per turn. So, yeah. But back then, she was actually a legitimate threatening creature that people seriously consider. I don't know that she ever actually did any major tournament success, but people were definitely trying to do stuff with her at like the FNM level, and she was not terrible, so it's one of those things where it's like, I wish this had gotten a card, and then it does get a card, and the card is playable, and it's like, I love that. That makes me so happy inside. So, I do like Miri the Cursed, but I don't know that she's actually good enough for the deck. Like, there's not a whole lot of little flying creatures getting into combat with her to chump block to save damage or anything. It's not like her +1/+1 counter matters a whole lot. So it's more that she has flying and haste than anything else. And yeah, I don't quite think so. The haste is what's doing it for me. Like random planeswalkers or just being able to get through for damage when your opponent doesn't think you can be a huge thing. But that's about it. Like we aren't going to get a ton of haste in mono black, especially if we are limiting ourselves to like certain creature types, because that leaves out things like Rankle. Um, so we're looking at things like Miri, the Bloodghast could probably make the deck, that sort of thing. I guess I put her on the list just because. We'll let her have her moment on the list, but she's not gonna make it to the end. Actually, I don't know if she has a comma there. Cat, vampire, reed. Does she have a comma? Yeah, she doesn't. Alright. I talked myself into it. She's probably not going to make the list, but maybe if it's between like her and some other mediocre vampires, she can get in. Yeah, just because I like playing with her. Alright, we will add Urborg to the list because it's a mono black deck. We will want the coffers and the um whatnot. So like we'll want coffers, but we'll also want some non-basic lands. So we put Urborg in to make sure that our coffers tap for infinite mana. I don't think we need anything like extortion. Hey. Oh, format. Surprised it didn't bring up Planechase when I did that. Mention. Although Planechase is not a format, it's a playing style. So it's the second one that had new cards. But I don't think it has any mono black unique cards, so it's just Sigh of the Shinobi. Like there are definitely blue black cards, and there's like one mono blue card, the Sakashima Student. I don't think there are any other like I think there's only the one deck that had black cards was the Ninja deck, so could be wrong about that, but there's the Psy, but I don't think there's any mono black creatures or spells or anything that are unique to the set. Nope. Shift. Order. No to bog down. The player loses X life, where X is the number of cards in that player's hand minus the number of cards in your hand. So for each card, they have more than me. Yeah, I don't think we need anything like that. Diabolic Intent. I don't mind putting my creatures in the graveyard, but sacrificing them from play is not really where I want to be getting rid of them from. I guess it would let me, like, tutor a Living Death. Like, sack the creature I want in the graveyard anyway to tutor one of the Living Death cards. Maybe. Oh, no, not Planechase. Plane Shift. Yeah. So we add it to the list. Right, it's Intent. I always like half forget the name of this card. It's one of those ones like I know there's a demonic tutor for the same casting cost, but sack a creature. I always forget what its actual name is because it doesn't have tutor in the name like all the other ones. Draco, Drone, or Exotic Disease, no. Lord of the Undead, no. any of the Nightscape things except for Familiar, but that doesn't do anything. I mean, it's not even a skeleton; it's a zombie. Usually, like the 2 mana 1/1 regenerators are skeletons. Stock no, Scuda no, or no. Of Dread, Monster Strength, Slay, Star Compass. Nope. Plane Shift. Now we're on Portal. Don't think there's anything I really need from the Portal sets. Like, I guess I put Imperial Seal on the list just in case, but probably not gonna make the final deck. These bargain. Need the 3 mana don't need the 3 mana Imperial Seal. I'm actually really surprised that they added the mana to this thing. Like, they printed Sylvan Tutor and Personal Tutor. You would think that Cruel Tutor would have been 1 black. I don't know. I guess it was really tearing up the Portal block environment because a lot of it was intended to be played by itself first to get used to it. Portal is always going to be one of the weirdest things. Like, you want to teach people how to play Magic by dumbing it down, but then you change the terminology in Portal. Like, blocking becomes intercepting, and power and toughness just have the little icons instead of being referred to as such. There are sorceries that you can play at instant speed. Like, in what universe did this make sense as a way to teach people Magic? Yeah, don't really think we need Virtue's Ruin. Alright, so that was Portal 2. Also, I will forever be sad that when they errated the cards to make them function like normal Magic cards, they didn't leave the sorceries that could be cast at instant speed as sorceries, which I think they should have done because it does change some of their functionality. They should have been sorceries that you could cast as though they had flash, but only during these specific times, and that was the only time you could legally cast them. Like, yes, it's way more complicated and wordy, but I think it actually maintains the card better because then the card, like the other cards from Portal, actually interact with them properly, and it gives you some weird fun interactions, like the Lurgoyf that cares about sorceries in your graveyard. If you have cards that you could cast, like they are sorceries, but you get to cast them at instant speed, gives you more things. So cards that would care about things like that. Now, granted, a lot of the stuff anymore cares about instants or sorceries, so that's kind of moot. But there are definitely cards that only care about sorceries, and it would have been more fun if all of the sorcery spells from Portal stayed sorceries and just had wording that allowed you to cast them at instant speed instead. It's not like there aren't other old cards that have incredibly awkward or weird wordings because of how they were originally worded and intended and how they need to function now in order to do what they do. So, I don't think that would have been asking too much to leave them intact, because there would be like some card that would be super weird that would care just enough about sorceries, because that is one of the things I love in Commander deck building, is when I find a card that is so obscure and weird but fits perfectly in the deck that I'm planning on building, that I can jam it in there and then it works with the cards, and nobody knows what that card is or does until they have to play against it or look it up, and that always makes me feel good when the deck has cards like that in it. I think one of my favorite ones from one of the worst Commander decks I ever built, not like unplayable, but just miserable to play with and against. I had a deck where it was a thought experiment where I was like, how many infinite combos can I jam in the same deck? And it was Mardu colors. It used Oros because it didn't care at the time what the commander was. Um, Later on, it would have been the Commander Masters Enchantment Matters guy, I think, because of all the enchantments in it. But whatchamacallit, the card that was in there that was the weirdest one that nobody knows what it does is Mangara's Equity, which is, so one of the combos was to deal damage with anything to well, you name red with Mangara's Equity, and then you deal damage to any of your um Boros Reckoner type creatures with an indestructible equipment on it, and that will cause them and the equity to both trigger because a red source has dealt damage to one of your permanents. And so the one effect will deal damage, so the equity will deal that much damage to an opponent, and the Reckoner will deal that much damage to itself because it was dealt damage. And so now a red source has damage one, and it just keeps looping. So that was like one of my favorite things in that deck, especially when I played against a mono black opponent and I named red and they got really confused. They're like, I have no idea what you're planning on doing with this now, and I am terrified. Oh, Cow, why aren't you a merfolk? Is there any historical precedence for that? Like, if we look back to the deep history of China's Three Kingdoms era, is there any evidence at all to support Cow might have been a merfolk or a dinosaur? All right. So we'll add it to the list just in case, but I don't think Imperial Seal is actually going to make the deck. Sorcery Speed just weakens this card so much. I'll also be forever sad that the Portal versions, Overwhelming Forces, and Burning of Jingye aren't all opponents. Stolen Grain, Stone Catapult, Bush Forces. Yeah, none of the creatures are gonna make it, not even Zhao Dun. He used to make it into my mono black decks just for the unique ability to pull back one of my good black spells, but I don't know, it just never felt good enough anymore. Premium decks, promos on Gather, Prophecy. Alright, Prophecy, what random vampire do you have that I'm forgetting about? Or do you have a mono black dinosaur for me? Mercenary, Avatar, Mental, Mercenary, Spirit, Zombie. These are good mill cards, right? Worm Mercenary. Nope. Spoil, Revel. Real. Warrior, Enchantment. Players upkeep that player mills a card, then they create X 1/1s where X is the milled card's mana value. If Balthor the Defiled had made it into the deck, maybe. Maybe Infernal Genesis. So that way I'd be making 2/2s, but giving the opponents a whole lot of 1/1s doesn't seem like a particularly winning strategy. Just so I can mill myself one card per turn and maybe get some 1/1s myself. So all of these. Discovery, Whipstitch Zombie. Okay, that was Prophecy. Now on Ravnica, Allegiance. Is the one that has the Undergrowth version of? Oh god, the name's gone out. I keep wanting to say Gruul, and it's not Gruul. It's Golgari. I think it is. So maybe there's some Black Self Mill as opposed to just Sacrifice. Sacrifice 3 cards. Crocodile. Maybe it's not. Yeah, I'm only seeing Orzhov. I saw the Erstwhile, and I'm pretty sure the Erstwhile are soldiers from Golgari, but since it's a mono black card, it fit fine in the format. Dusk Demise, no. Better Bones, no. Inheritance, no. Beyond's a Beast. Rogue. Zombie. Spirit. Forgotten Gods. Trumpeteer. Spawn. Spire Mangler. The Haunt of Hightower is a vampire. When it attacks, defending player discards a card. Whenever a card is put into opponent's graveyard from anywhere, put a 1/1 counter on it. It's a flying lifelink creature. That might possibly be worth it. So this is Ravnica. Third time. Yeah, okay, so we already had Mausoleum Secrets and Price of Fame, so yeah, we did go through that one, and it didn't have any self-mill cards besides the Whisperer of Power. Or black vampire. 3/3. Of the Guild Pack new, Undercity Scavenger, and Embrace. There's a Vindictive Vampire. That one's kind of underwhelming. Again, we're not an Aristocrats deck, and if we were, we would have much better vampires. Alright, so Ravnica, City of Guilds. Turn to Ravnica. The Blood Funnel. Oyster. No. Rain Spoil. think there's any particular 5-drop we would want to get, so. Zombie Wolf, no. -1. Bob. Guard, Machinations. Disembowel. Gnomes. Do we want any of the dredge creatures? Don't know that I want a 2-mana 1/1. I might be down for like the Imp or something. Hunted Horror, Infectious Host, Banshee. Second. Hey, I'm back. 5 cards of your library. For each card, put that card in your graveyard unless you pay 2 life, put the rest into your hand. Yeah, it's kind of falls in the same category as all the other ones. It is nice that we could put up to 5 cards into our graveyard, but Thirst, no. Protoplasm, no. Phalanx, no. Nightmare Void. Ask Plague Boiler. Or can't run ribbons. I was about to say don't need ribbons, but can't run ribbons. Augur Mage. Sewer Drag. Red Memory. Cast. Yeah, I could see running Stinkweed Imp. Go to original Ravnica. It's 3 in a black. 2 in a black. Better. I think I'm confusing it with Chimney Imp. Stat wise. Alright, Strands of Undeath. Thought Picker Witch. Jade, Vigor Mortis. Addictive Mob. Bowbringer Demon. So it's really, for mono black, it's the Imp and the Thug and like the 2 spells. They want Nightmare Void. I forget how much you mill for the other one to give a creature -1/-1. Like, I think I glossed over that one. So there's Golgari Thug. There it is. It's Dark Blast. It's 1 mana to give -1/-1, but dredges for 3. I do have to give up my regular draw in order to get these back. Like, at least the Imp has Death Touch functionally. Forget if it has literal Death Touch or not. Yeah, when it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy it. So it doesn't have literal Death Touch, but yeah, out of all of them, that is the one I most want. Like, just for the creature. Like, I feel like I'm actually getting something out of that if I dredge it back to help set up the captain. If the Golgari Thug were a vampire or something, I'd be a lot more inclined. But yeah, getting back a 1/1 that then gets a different creature back on top of my deck. Yeah, I don't think so. I think the Imp is good enough, though. Alright. That brings us to Return to Ravnica. Yep, go ahead. You can search for it. Why added it to the thing? I'd like you to search for it now, so that way we can look at the cards from it that meet my criteria. So, Slug, Cremate, Imp, Revenants of Spirit, the Demon. Reveals cards on the top until they reveal a land card. No. Deviant Glee, no. Rail, Grim Roustabout, no. Party, Mind Rot. Metropolis Region is a vampire. That's a very brutal one to put into play for free. Alright, we'll consider that one. Metropolis Region. Put into play tapped and attacking. Right, 3, black, black, black. Vampire, 6/5. Hey, Jailbreaker, Pack Rat, Perilous Shadows, Pithing Needle, Ambler, Affliction, Street Sweeper, maybe on Underworld Connections. One black, black. That's Return to Ravnica. That brings us to Rise of the Eldrazi, where we have like what, 2, maybe 3 vampires. We have Drana. We have the Spawnsire. Not Spawnsire. Pawn of Ulamog. Sorry, Spawnsire is the big Eldrazi. Pawn does make you sass me. Makes spawns, but and it almost has Spawn of Ulamog in its name. One letter off. Alright, there's some mediocre ones like the Arrogant Bloodlord. So... then probably... Drone Vampire. I'm wondering if there's like one of these that's like a 3-mana 1/1, but it gets +1/+1 counters, and is otherwise a free sacrifice outlet. And I'm wondering if I don't want something like that for, since I already have the one Living Death variant, and we could probably run Living Death, and more importantly, Bringer of the Last Gift is a vampire, so that probably makes the list. So I'm wondering if I do want like one sack outlet for my guys. But we already have Viscera Seer on the list at that point, so maybe we don't need it. I guess I'll consider it just as a second sacrifice outlet. Eyes. Bloodthrone Vampire. And a black vampire. One. I don't need Cadaver Imp, Consume the Meat, Consuming Vapors, new, Corpse Hatch, Curse of Wizardry. Do we want original Drana? with things like Coffer, she can kill almost anything, realistically. Like, anything that she can target. Without Coffers, she can kill some, like, mid-sized and utility creatures, but not, like, the biggest threats, normally. I suppose I consider her still. I think every version of Drana, like, this is the version of Drana that I would least be inclined to assume would make the deck. Like, I think the other two make it before her, but out of the mono black Dranas. But she still can make it into the deck, I think. Not need Hedron, Conscription, can't run Emrakul, Zombie, Essence Feed, Goldra's Assassin. So it needs to level up twice to become a 2/2 that can... Yeah, it's not anything impressive at all. Don't need Inscription, Induce Despair. Keening Stone is super expensive, and we need to already have a graveyard. Although getting a graveyard, like building up a graveyard, is not that difficult. I'm just wondering if we wouldn't be better off with things like Sands of Delirium or Whetstone. The self-mill. Also, the Keening Stone is the worst one if we suddenly need to mill our opponents out instead. Since we have so much graveyard hate. Nirkana Cutthroat. Oh, right, Nirkana Revenant is a vampire. I always forget that. I keep thinking it's just a ghost. Nirkana. Right, Nirkan. Yep. Yep. Or black, vampire, fade, 4/4. Champion. There's the Pawn of Ulamog. Alright, the Nirkana Revenant, I feel bad that I forgot was a vampire set. Like, the other ones, they're like, yeah, I forgot about them, but to be fair, they're very forgettable. Don't think I need Repay in Kind. There's the Spawn Sire, Suffer the Past. No. Thought Gorger. I think we need the Infinite Gear. And that's it. Want Vendetta. Offshade. Alright, so that's Rise of the Eldrazi. What are we at? 43 minutes. Alright, so Rivals of Ixalan. See if we can find any juicy things. The appropriate colors. Yeah, don't need the Ambusher. Not running Angrath / can't run Angrath because all of his versions are red-black, so extra not bothering. Draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of vampires you control. I mean, probably worth it. Champion of Dusk. The black, Vampire Knight. 4. 3, Dead Man's Chest. Dinosaur Hunter, probably not. Direfleet Poisoner. Target attacking pirate gets +1/+1 and Death Touch. The 2-mana 2/2 Death Touch with Flash. Like, there are a bunch of pirates that aren't particularly impressive that we have on the list, so I do think the Direfleet Poisoner has a better chance of making it than some of them. Dusk Legion Zealot. Probably. Or at least is worth considering. One in a black. Vampire. Soldier. Soldier. So I control another pirate. Forerunner of the Coalition, probably. Two black, human, pirate. You two. Getting to tutor a changeling, basically. So that way I get a merfolk or a dinosaur to go along with it. And having them lose a life whenever a pirate enters the battlefield is just enough of an added bonus. Being Scoundrel, Gruesome Fate. Don't need Acquisition. Mausoleum Harpy. Craving, no. He's kind of only okay. We will take the Pitiless Plunderer, though. Two in a black, human, pirate. 1/4, I believe. Yeah. Or, I'm sorry, did I put 2 in a black? It's 3 in a black. So is it my creatures or their creatures? My creatures die, I get a treasure. Still worth considering. Like, it's one of the better pirates just in general. Having all of your stuff dying, turning into extra mana sources. Yeah, I think Sadistic Sky Marcher is just kind of underwhelming compared to, like, I would rather have Nighthawk, like either of the two Nighthawks at that point before him. There's Tetsamok, who is one of our mono black dinosaurs, so definitely. Primal Death. 4 black. Elder Dinosaur. 6/6, I believe. Yep. Okay. We have a few Planeswalkers on the list, so we probably don't need the Immortal Sun. We can put Twilight Prophet on the list. There was that one time in a Commander Legends limited game where I actually got to activate it once and draw an extra card off of it, and then it got killed, and then I brought it back, and then it got killed again. So, you know. Don't need Vona's Hunger. 4 mana 3/3 Death Touch is not where I want to be at. Walker deck Vraska, not good enough. And okay. Oh, we got a dinosaur, so there's that. That was Rivals. 2 Saviors, then. Have none of the relevant creature types. Yeah, I don't think there's... I'm going to be surprised if there's anything in Saviors that I actually want. Yeah, Ashes of the Fallen, not quite good enough. If it was straight up, all of my creatures in graveyards have Changeling, maybe that would be enough redundancy with the um, Maskwood Nexus. But don't need a Kuda. Choice of Damnations, no. Those. Death Knell, Kami. Not making opponents draw cards. Miser, Infernal Kirin, Crane, Kagemaru. Clutches. Bonds. Since I'll go Trader to Mortals now. Well, Never Torment, one nothing. Ogres or either or. Nope. Okay. Didn't think so. Alright, what's after Saviors? Because we're getting close to the hour mark. Yeah, we should be able to do Scars of Mirrodin real quick. I don't need Argentum armor. No. Phyrexian Goblin Zombie, no. Vampire Warrior. Yeah, I don't think we will have quite enough artifacts consistently for Metalcraft. Like, not enough to consistently trigger Metalcraft. Like, our commander is an artifact on his front face, so that's one. But then we need two other mana rocks when we cast the Bleak Coven Vampires or when they come into play. It's not unreasonable, it's just not, like, it's a 5 mana 4/3 the rest of the time, and even if it's draining for 4, it's one opponent that's losing the 4 life, so even then it's kind of not amazing. Don't need to proliferate. Harvester for anything. One of these Darksteel things. Etch Champion, no. Exsanguinate. We could run Exsanguinate, but that feels like a alternate win con at that point. Like, it's not focused on our Grim Captain, and I don't think we need it. Like, we generate a ton of mana because we're in mono black, and there are tons of mana doublers in mono black, but if I feel like we need an alternate win con, I can always come back and grab it, but it's not really like the main thing. Geth, Lord of the Vault, new. Grind Clock. It's cheap to get down, but slow to build up to a relevant number. Like, I feel like it needs to get 2 counters on it at least before I want to start milling myself. And yeah, I kind of want to just start milling myself. I'd rather spend the mana on something that mills me immediately. That's activation. The fact that it doesn't cost any mana is nice, but it's not good enough, I don't think. Morricide, Mimic Vat, Mindslaver, Reaver, Battlesphere, no. Like, I could run the Nile Spellbomb just as another exile effect since it lets me draw a card when I use it, but I think we have enough. I think I like our other ones better. Don't need Painful Quandary. Plague Stinger, no. Platinum Empyrean. Ratchet Bomb, no. Putrescence, no. Sandvol. Skin Render, Skittles. Hellkite, no. Stratus Scythe is a huge power and toughness boost. And we would get to exile the land from... So it's basically just a third Nightmare Lash. Except that it actually costs mana to equip this one. And I have to exile a swamp from my deck when I cast it. Yeah, probably not. Like, I don't know how much room I'm going to have for cards like that, but it feels like I already have two, so trying to cram a third one in there seems a bit much, especially when the other two are the better ones already. Alright, well, we made it up through Scars of Mirrodin this time, but that's going to do it for me for today, so thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.